Welcome to the DX Today podcast, your daily deep dive into the AI ecosystem. I'm Chris, and joining me as always is Laura.
It is great to be here with you, Chris, because today we get to dig into a report that I think genuinely reframes the whole AI and jobs debate.
I'm intrigued already because the jobs conversation usually swings between AI will take everything and AI will take nothing. And neither extreme ever feels quite right to me.
Exactly. And that is why PwC's 2026 Global AI Jobs Barometer, released on June 15th, matters so much, since it cuts straight through that tired binary with actual data.
So set the stage for me here, because when you say data, I want to know how big this study actually is before we start drawing any sweeping conclusions from it.
PwC analyzed roughly 1 billion job advertisements across dozens of countries, which makes this one of the largest looks at how artificial intelligence is reshaping real hiring patterns worldwide.
1 billion job ads is a serious sample. So what is the single biggest takeaway that PwC wants us to walk away with after crunching all of that information together?
Their headline is that AI is splitting the labor market into two distinct tracks, and PwC's Global Chief AI Officer Joe Atkinson literally calls the phenomenon a new divide.
A new divide is an evocative phrase, but I need you to make it concrete for me, because two tracks could mean 100 different things depending on how you slice it.
Fair enough, so picture two buckets of jobs, where one bucket gets professionalized by AI and the other bucket gets democratized by AI, and the outcomes are strikingly different.
Okay, those two words are doing a lot of heavy lifting. So walk me through what professionalized actually means in this context, and which kinds of workers land inside that bucket.
Professionalized roles are ones where AI raises the ceiling on what a skilled human can accomplish. Think radiologists or recruiters, where the technology amplifies expert judgment rather than replacing it.
That makes sense for the upside bucket. So now give me the contrast, because I assume democratized is the word PwC uses for the jobs feeling more competitive pressure right now.
Precisely. Democratized roles are ones where AI lowers the barrier to entry so more people can do the work, like IT service managers or medical secretaries facing a wider talent pool.
So the irony here is that being democratized, which sounds positive and inclusive, actually correlates with weaker outcomes for the workers. And that feels counterintuitive on its very first reading.
It is counterintuitive, and the numbers prove it because professionalized jobs are growing twice as fast as democratized jobs and showing 42% faster wage growth since 2021.
42% faster wage growth is enormous. So let me push back gently, because correlation is not the causation, and I wonder whether AI is really the driver or just along for the ride.
That is the right skepticism to bring, but PwC controls for a lot here, and the pattern holds consistently across industries and countries in a way that pure coincidence struggles to explain.
All right, I will grant that the breadth of the data set makes a random fluke unlikely. So let us talk about the wage premium specifically, since that number tends to grab everyone's attention.
The wage premium for workers who bring genuine AI skills to the table climbed to 62% this year, which is up from 57% just 1 year earlier.
A 62% premium means a worker with AI skills can command dramatically more than an otherwise identical colleague without them. So is that premium uniform, or does it swing by sector?
It swings wildly by sector, and this is where it gets fascinating, because the premium runs as high as 118% in consumer markets, but only 16% in government.
That gap between consumer markets and the public sector is staggering. And it makes me wonder whether government simply cannot pay those premiums, or whether the work itself just resists AI augmentation.
It is probably a mix of both, since public sector pay scales are rigid and slow to move, while consumer markets compete ferociously for anyone who can turn AI into measurable revenue.
Let us zoom out to the jobs themselves, because a premium is about pay. But I also want to understand whether the raw number of AI-skilled roles is actually expanding the way people claim.
It is expanding dramatically because jobs requiring specific AI skills like prompt engineering or machine learning grew about 69%, which is roughly 8 times faster than the overall jobs market at 9%.
8 times faster than the broader market is the kind of statistic that stops you mid-scroll. So does PwC give us any sense of the absolute scale rather than just the growth rate?
They do, and the absolute number of AI jobs is now nearly twice as high as it was back in 2024. So this is acceleration stacked on top of already rapid acceleration.
Now here's the part of the report I find genuinely surprising, because there is this finding about entry-level roles that seems to flip the traditional career ladder completely upside down.
You mean the 7 times statistic? And yes, it is remarkable because entry level roles most exposed to AI are now 7 times more likely to demand traditionally senior skills like judgment and leadership.
Sit with that for a second, because it means a brand new graduate walking into an AI exposed entry job is suddenly expected to bring the kind of seasoned judgment we used to reserve for managers.
Right, and that has huge implications for how we educate people and structure early careers. Because if AI handles the routine tasks, then the human is left doing the harder, more cognitively demanding work immediately.
This is where I start to worry a little, because if entry level work now requires senior level skills, then how on earth does anyone build those skills in the first place without the easy on ramp?
That is the genuine tension at the heart of this report. And honestly, nobody has fully solved it yet. Since the old apprenticeship model assumed years of routine work that AI is now quietly absorbing.
So let us shift from workers to the companies employing them, because PwC also looked at firms themselves. And I gather the AI-exposed companies are pulling ahead on several different measures at once.
They really are, because companies most able to use AI saw headcount growth of 52% versus 36%, and wage growth of 24% versus 17% for the laggards.
Hold on, headcount growth of 52% is important, because it directly contradicts the popular narrative that adopting AI means slashing your workforce. So AI-forward firms are actually hiring more people, not fewer.
That is the most hopeful thread in the entire report, because it suggests AI is being used to unlock growth and enter new markets, rather than simply to cut costs and shrink teams.
But I want to be careful not to oversell the optimism, because faster headcount growth at winning firms could still coexist with painful losses at the firms that fail to adapt quickly enough.
That is a fair and important caveat, because this is fundamentally a story about divergence, where the gap between the AI haves and have-nots is widening across companies, workers, and even entire industries.
Speaking of industries, you mentioned earlier that revenue per employee tells a similar story, so unpack that for me, because that metric gets right at whether AI is genuinely making people more productive.
Industries most exposed to AI saw 3 times higher growth in revenue per employee, landing at 27% versus just 9% for the industries least touched by these tools.
3 times higher growth in revenue per employee is the productivity dividend that economists have been hunting for. So does PwC drill down into the very top performers within that exposed group?
They do, and the top 20% of the most AI-exposed companies posted labor productivity growth of 163%, relative to 2018, which is almost 5 times the broader exposed average.
163% productivity growth at the leaders is the kind of number that reshapes entire competitive landscapes. So let me ask the question everyone listening is silently wondering about right now.
Let me guess, you want to know whether all of this productivity eventually flows back to workers as higher pay, or whether it just pools at the top as profit for shareholders.
That is exactly it, because the whole social bargain of technological progress depends on whether the gains get shared. And history is honestly pretty mixed on whether that sharing actually happens.
The encouraging signal is that wages are rising faster at AI-exposed firms. But the worrying signal is that those gains concentrate among workers who already have the skills and the leverage to capture them.
So if you're a worker listening right now and feeling a knot in your stomach, what is the actionable takeaway? Because doom without direction is the least useful thing we could possibly offer.
The clearest takeaway is to move toward the professionalized side of the divide by pairing your domain expertise with real AI fluency, since that combination is exactly what commands the 62% premium.
And I would add that the human-intensive skills PwC keeps highlighting, the judgment, the creativity, the leadership, are precisely the capabilities that compound over a career rather than getting automated away next quarter.
Beautifully put, and that is the deeper optimism hiding inside a report full of divides. Because the skills that make us most human are turning out to be the most economically durable ones.
I think that is the perfect note to land on. Because the story here is not really machines versus people. It is people with AI pulling ahead of people without it.
And the policy challenge that follows is making sure that on-ramp stays open to everyone. So the divide PwC describes becomes a temporary adjustment rather than a permanent feature of the economy.
That is all for today's episode of the DX Today podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.